Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am really excited to be amongst you this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, and share with you the lighting experience that we have created for the city of Muscat in Oman, in GCC, in the Gulf countries. And while the agenda of this presentation is urban lighting, but I think it's good that we'll take a 360-degree view of lighting because lighting has a lot of other complementary objectives which a city always looks at. So, all right. So the priorities of municipalities in this part of the world, and I assume in many other cities, is we are looking at environmental efficiency. We are looking at optimal operation of the city in terms of lighting and other critical infrastructure, and of course, we are looking at the economic efficiency. How can we run the infrastructure at the minimum cost possible because in large cities there is a lot of wastage of energy and human capital, and it's important that we look at all the aspects together. So the in this part of the world, Muscat municipality has been looking at lighting in totality or smart city in totality, and we have looked at not just lighting, but we have looked at all complementary applications such as building, transportation, lighting, water, wastewater, and surveillance. So the directors of the city are looking at all possibilities where, because all these applications are power hungry, they consume a lot of energy. So it's important that while we minimize the consumption of energy, we also look at optimal output for all these critical services of the city. So so energy saving in lighting and otherwise, it's an opportunity because when we take initiatives such as smart lighting or smart water or smart city, it's an opportunity to look at city in totality. It is an opportunity to look at what are the demand points that are consuming the energy. So the five challenges that Muscat City has tried to address in their planning cycle. One is diversity in sources of energy. So there is a concrete effort to look at all kinds of sources of energy. So whether it is solar, whether it is gas-based. So especially in lighting, what we have seen in last year or so, there has been increasing demand of introducing solar-based energy source because the lighting infrastructure is generally quite distributed across tens of kilometers. So it consumes a lot of energy. So if you have an alternate source, then that can really help in saving a lot of cost. The second challenge is how to measure the consumption. And it has to become a culture, it has to become a norm. And it is important that unless you measure the consumption, you cannot improve it. So you have to have the parameters in front of you to look to do your planning. The third thing is number of energy saving measures must increase. So LED retrofit is one measure, control and monitoring, real-time lighting infrastructure is another measure. Making sure that the dimming policies are in place could be another measure. So it was important for Muscat municipality to look at all possible measures and implement them using smart software which are running the lighting today. It is not humanly possible to introduce these schemes while you're running the lighting infrastructure. You have to use a lot of technology, and that is what they went ahead and did. The outcome of these measures have to integrate with the carbon footprint strategy. So there are a lot of programs in the city and in the country as a whole to save energy and ultimately save the carbon footprint. There's a commitment to the climate change. So it fits in very well with the mission of authorities to look at how the energy can be saved and how it can contribute to the national climate strategy. And of course, the demand side management, which means how do you manage the consumption points of energy? And lighting is one consumption point. Water pumps could be another. Large equipment could be yet another consumption point. So we have to look at the demand side as well as supply side. So the extreme left of this slide is the supply side and the right is the demand side. So we have to do everything that is required to optimize the balance between the demand and the supply. We want the demand to be consistent, but the supply requirements should be optimal. So the top energy questions in front of the authorities are how much are we spending? And when we started this project in Muscat City, there was a concrete effort because the bills were coming on paper. And it's very complex metering process by the utilities where you will get many bills for a couple of streets. And so it's humanly very challenging to collate all the data and understand what is the spend, how much is the bill, and how much is the bill by the consumption point. So what is the bill for high wattage? What is the bill for highways? What is the bill for inner roads? This is very important because this is a driver for your strategy in public lighting. Second is what is using most energy. So whether it is home or it is streets of a city, it is important to understand what is using energy, what is being run for what duration, so that you can plan the strategy and put it in the software. Third one is, have we got our timings right? So the schedules of the lighting have to be clearly thought out. They have to be captured. They have to be based on, and I have a slide which nicely talks about how different sections of the cities may require a different strategy.
So really, all of these thematics are very.
So the next one is, do we need new equipment? So we have been talking about the LED retrofit, which is an example of a new equipment. Is it possible to use the existing equipment, work on the timings, work on other strategies to reduce, or do we have to change some equipment? So that is another question that municipalities are trying to answer. Do we change energy usage practice? Many times, and this is an interesting example, many times what happens, you have an electrical panel which is controlling the operation of streetlight. However, there could be some landscape water requirements that are also being met by tapping the energy of the control panel. So the energy usage practice has to be clearly looked at, and these are different applications, different departments. So there's a need to figure out what goes where. And of course, outside the lighting, when you talk about the energy questions for large infrastructure and buildings, in this part of the world, which is generally quite hot, the cooling consumes a lot of energy. So the municipal buildings and other private buildings are very worried about how to control the energy consumption for cooling. So at Muscat Municipality, the strategies that we have implemented, number one, replace conventional lighting with LED. So that was the most important initiative, and that has resulted in tremendous saving in energy costs. Second is real-time monitoring and control. Muscat Municipality knew from day one that a lot of these initiatives could be deployed in the field and they can run on their own with some manual supervision. but they had a very clear vision that they would like to see them centrally for multiple reasons. One is all the alarms and alerts and energy saving schemes and operational schemes can be visualized and planned and monitored from a central point in the city. So from the very beginning, they had a clear strategy of a command and control center. And I have some pictures of the control center that exists here in Muscat, and I think you may find it very interesting. The third one is optimize on-off schedule and dimming policies. And on day one of this LUCI workshop, in the keynote, and in the subsequent interviews, we talked about the dimming policies and how Europe is considering even switching off certain sections of lighting based on their usage. So this is a very important decision to be made, and the saving of energy is directly proportional to the percentage dimming. So it's very, very important that these are clearly thought out without compromising the needs of the city. So if it's a high traffic road, we cannot be very aggressive on dimming. If it is an inner road, like in Bangladesh, they have used sensors. So we can use sensors to study the traffic flow in the weekdays and in the weekends, and then decide what should be your dimming plan. Because technology exists today, maybe you want a dimming plan which is different in the weekdays and it is quite different in the weekends. It may be first day of the weekend, it may be less aggressive. Last day of the weekend, because people stay home, it may be, and all these little initiatives are directly contributing to energy saving without, again, compromising the needs of the citizens. And road section based lighting strategy. So are you on the express highway? Are you on inner road? Are you near a school or a hospital? Not so much school in the night, but hospital. Are you in a public park? So depending on what section of the city you are, Muscat Municipality has either they have started implementing or they already have plans to look at the section-based lighting strategy in the city of Muscat. So, high-level approach, first thing we have to do, as I mentioned in the beginning, you cannot improve anything unless you measure it. It's like our blood pressure of our body. So the doctor will always prescribe that you monitor your blood pressure twice a day and then come back with 1 week data, and then only they prescribe medication or improvement. So similarly, there is a need to do energy audit of a city. Which means what you're consuming and what you're spending, and what are the demand points, what is the wattage, what are the durations of running. So energy audit is a very important step in having a citywide lighting strategy, because then you have a very quantified goal. The second one is you have to have a written down formal energy efficiency blueprint once you have done the audit. So you should know what is your goal in terms of percentage saving, how much is your budget. So the blueprint has to be very clear. And once the initiatives are being implemented, the savings have to be linked and have to be compared with the blueprint which was made at the start. The third one is installations and control. So all the control hardware and software and monitoring hardware and software, including sensors, they have to be clearly thought about in the high-level approach. And of course, real-time monitoring and analysis and dashboards in the command center. So that's why command center is important, because you can do dashboarding, you can see city as a whole rather than looking at the sections of the road. It is important to look at the section, but you have to first start with the city and then reach to a section. Otherwise, we will not have a big picture of what is happening in the city, how are we improving vis-a-vis our plan. And of course, once you start reviewing plan versus actual, the corrective actions that have to be taken in terms of ROI some improvement in efficiency. So maybe you are below the target. You may like to experiment with a more aggressive schedule, timing, as well as dimming policies. And large cities are also forming energy committee. They also have senior people who are responsible for energy plan of the city because the stakes are very high. Though I'm showing a building here, but this building is just to show an energy demand point. This building could be a street light panel or a street light. And the idea to show here is while we are monitoring energy through energy meter, which is nothing but a metering sensor, there are many other parameters that you can see in real time, which could be like in Muscat city, not just energy, we are also monitoring the humidity and temperature in the electrical panels, because when it becomes hot and sticky, and suppose it is raining and the humidity is very high, then there could be chances of shortage in the control panels because they are in the open and there could be some leakage. So, and also when the temperature goes up quite high, it may damage the electrical equipment. So we have sensors installed inside the panels, and we have alerts and alarm thresholds which are set so that any such thresholds, when they are crossed, you can take a corrective action. This is the I assume a lot of you know how large cities are using Industry 4.0 in their various public service infrastructure, and lighting is one of the critical ones. So here I'm trying to show in a smart city what are the critical infrastructure where the municipalities or other public services, government companies are using Industry 4.0, which is basically smart systems to run the critical services of the city. So this is the slide I was talking about, which is adaptive lighting, which means light based on the section of the city. It's not one size fit all. There is a huge potential to save money and keep the beauty of the city intact when you look at city in a manner like what is there in this slide. And if you look at the bottom of this slide, so what you see on the top, you enable it by the measures which are at the bottom. So cloud-based on-off schedule. That cloud-based means something which is run from central command center. Location-based dimming profile. If you are close to a roundabout or a junction lighting, you may like to do less dimming because in the night time also there could be congestion in these areas. Whereas when they are inner roads, you may go easy on it. Then you would, city map based view, you would definitely like to visualize the lighting as it is, lighting operations on a map of the city, which makes it much easier not only to monitor if everything is okay, but if there's an alarm, if there's an outage, then how do you attend to it? If it is shown on a map, it becomes much easier to control that outage. Point and segment control. So either you can control a segment of light, so entire road or 40, 50 lamps together with one policy, or if you have little extra budget, and which is the future, so you can use NEMA or Zaga based point controls where you have control even at a single pole level. The next one is energy dashboards. The ultimate aim, two most important aims of smart lighting is energy reduction and carbon footprint. And the second one is make sure that the objectives of the city, such as beautification and safety, are properly met. And last but not the least is alerts and alarms for maximum uptime. So you would like, we are also experimenting with some artificial intelligence where you can predict a failure from the electrical data. So these are the initiatives that are being either taken or being actively considered by the city of Muscat. These are some installations I thought it would be interesting. So what you see, these are the smart panels with the sticker, a cloud-based streetlight management system. And these are connected on either GPRS or other forms of communication to the command center. And these panels sit next to the existing switching panels of the street light. So all the actions, smart actions taken are through this panel into the existing panel. This panel, depending on the existing size of electrical panels, can also, the electricals can go inside the existing panel. So you may not need two panels. But sometimes it's easier to have two panels. We have space in the field because then the maintenance also becomes easier. So these are some live installations. We have picked up this road. It is interesting because it has two lighting objectives, one for walkway, one for the traffic. It is also on seawater, as you can see. And the poles, which are holding the lights, the black and gold color poles, these are anti-corrosive poles, which can withstand the corrosion due to the water. So again, it is important to see lighting in totality and not just as a source of light. So this is the command center I was talking about. This is when you enter, and these are some of the dashboards that you will see. So they can actually monitor the energy consumption, the operational time, the comparison, day-to-day comparison, week-to-week, year to date. So all the analytics as well as real-time alerts and alarms with a map view can be seen centrally from this command center. So on daily basis, there is no need to dispatch teams to actually see what is happening in the city. You can control it electronically from the central place. This is a closure view. As you can see, the left side, you see some maps. Some of the middle screens are energy dashboards. Extreme right, you are seeing the alarms which are coming live from the street light switching panels. All this is made possible by using a software platform which is modern, which is suited for these kind of real-time applications. And so in the screen, you can see and you can notice from the top, there are dashboards, maps, alarms, reports, feeder pillar configurations, administration, report configurations. On the left vertical, you are seeing sections of the road which can be configured based on the directorates of the cities. So generally, cities are divided into zones and they're given names, and then ultimately you reach a road section. So you can. This makes it easy for city managers to control the light or to monitor them, because you can visualize things. Because there could be different people responsible for different zones. So they can be given user rights so that when they come into the system, they only see their lighting sections without disturbing others. You can see light status. You can see whether the panel door is open, closed. You can see temperature, humidity, what time the last data came, energy consumption last night, last week, last month, this year. So all the energy dashboards, they make it very interesting to not only control the lights, but also have an eye on the saving. We get close to 24 energy parameters every 5 to 10 minutes from the field. And so there is a lot of data which is for real-time monitoring as well as for future planning. And you can see at the bottom right, so the running hours are also being shown so that you have a comparison, and when you are changing and when you are playing with it, you know how the things are changing. Some more dashboards, daily run hours versus daily energy comparison, monthly run hours. So it makes it much easier for energy planners to manage the consumption. These are Kpi Matrix. There are strict KPIs on both operation and saving, and individuals are responsible for individual zones. So this kind of matrix gives you a very clear picture of what is happening where in the city, and you are seeing it all centrally. There is also a mobile application for field staff who is responsible for outage monitoring and fixing any problem. So this is a lighter version of what you see on in the command center, because this is meant only for people who are supposed to attend to any alarms in the night time or during daytime. Thank you very much. I hope you found it relevant. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.